الله من قرأ الفاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين والصلاة والسلام والتحية والإكرام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين الذين أذهب الله عنهم الرجس وطهرهم تطهيرا. اللهم صل على محمد. أما بعد، فقد قال الله سبحانه تبارك وتعالى في محكم كتابه المجيد وفرقانه الحميد وقوله الحق: بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ولقد ضربنا للناس في هذا القرآن من كل مثل لعلهم يتذكرون. آمنا بالله. صدق الله العلي العظيم. صلوات على محمد وآل محمد. We are discussing parables in the Holy Quran. Parables are examples, are similitudes. Basically, they are a means of clarifying things for us by giving us something to visualize. And by visualizing the example that is given to us, we understand better what Allah Azza wa Jal is trying to tell us. We have already discussed the parable of the fly in the Quran. And last night we discussed the parable of the deeds of the kuffar, which is described as being like ash that is blown away on a tempestuous day, on a stormy day. Tonight we want to look at another parable of the Holy Quran from Surah Al-Kahf, ayah number 45, in which Allah Azza wa Jal says, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلَ الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا كَمَاءٍ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ فَاخْتَلَطَ بِهِ نَبَاتُ الْأَرْضِ فَأَصْبَحَ هَشِيمًا تَذْرُوهُ الرِّيَاحُ وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مُقْتَدِرًا. In this ayah of Surah Al-Kahf, Allah Azza wa Jal is instructing the Prophet and telling him, وَاضْرِبْ لَهُمْ مَثَلًا. Draw for the people a parable. A parable of what? A parable about hayat dunya, the life of this world. What is the life of this world like? كَمَاءٍ أَنزَلْنَاهُ مِنَ السَّمَاءِ. The life of this world is like that water that we send from the heavens, meaning rain. What happens when the rain comes? فَاخْتَلَطَ بِهِ نَبَاتُ الْأَرْضِ. When the rain comes, it causes vegetation to grow. It mixes with the soil and with the vegetation, allowing it to grow and develop. And then what happens? فَأَصْبَحَ هَشِيمًا تَذْرُوهُ الرِّيَاحُ. After the life cycle of that vegetation ends, it withers away and becomes dry. And then when the wind comes, it blows away that dry vegetation, those dead plants. Then Allah says, وَكَانَ اللَّهُ عَلَى كُلِّ شَيْءٍ مُقْتَدِرًا. This is the parable we want to discuss tonight. The parable that talks about this dunya. When we look at this parable, we find that it is actually talking about the stages of life in this dunya. First, the rain comes down, the vegetation grows, the life cycle of that vegetation ends, it dies, it withers away, and is blown away. So we begin discussing this parable first and foremost by trying to understand the meaning of the word dunya. What does dunya mean? Dunya can come from two roots. It can come from the root dunu, which means near. If you say dunya comes from the root dunu, which means near, this world is called dunya because it is nearer to us than the akhirah. The second root can be dani. Dani means low. This world is called dunya because it is the lowest realm. All the realms that come after it are higher. The lowest realm is this dunya. And that is why when our Holy Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, when he was asked, why has dunya been named dunya? He said, because ad-dunya daniyah. This world is a lowly place, a lowly realm. That is why it has been called dunya. Now that we understand dunya, we want to look at this parable and see the stages that we undergo in this world have been beautifully described in another verse of the Quran, which all of us have heard time and time again. From Surah Al-Hadid, the verse that tells us, اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب ولهو وزينة وتفاخر بينكم وتكاثر في الأموال والأولاد كمثل غيث أعجب الكفار نباته ثم يهيج فتراه مصفرا ثم يكون حطاما. Haven't you heard this verse? You have heard this verse all the time. وفي الآخرة عذاب شديد ومغفرة من الله ورضوان وما الحياة الدنيا إلا متاع الغرور. Verse number 20 of Surah Al-Hadid describes this world. It is one ayah that gives you the complete description not only of this dunya, but the phases that human beings undergo in this dunya. Allama Tabatabai explains it very beautifully. He says this ayah is telling us of how human beings develop in this world. He says when a child is born and he is a young child, that is the phase of la'ib. إنما اعلموا أنما الحياة الدنيا لعب. So the first phase is la'ib. La'ib means what? Playing. So the first phase of a human being, when they are children, they are always engrossed in playing. وَلَهْوٌ, the second phase. When that child becomes an adolescent, now lahu comes in play. Adolescence comes in. Puberty comes in. The passions, the hormones, lahu now attacks the human being. That is the phase of lahu. Then the next stage was zinatun. Now the human being has progressed. He was a child, he became an adolescent. Now he becomes a young man, a youth. The youth are very much involved in zina, in their beauty, in their grooming. My beard should be the best. My hair should be the best. Youth. And then the next stage after youth, adulthood. What is the stage of adulthood? وَتَفَاخُرٌ بَيْنَكُمْ. Now in adulthood, the human being wants to compete with one another. The human being wants to show that I am better than the other. And then finally, when that human being has passed the stage and now he reaches old age, وَتَكَاثُرٌ فِي الْأَمْوَالِ وَالْأَوْلَادِ. When a person reaches that old age, they are now thinking of their progeny. They are now thinking of the wealth that they have so that they can retire in peace. And so Allama Tabatabai says this verse of the Quran shows us the stages of human development in this world. When we are looking at the parable of the dunya, which talks about how rain comes down, how the vegetation grows, and then how it dies, that is also telling us about the phases in this dunya. And that ayat of Surah Al-Hadid tells us about the phases of human development in this dunya. And therefore, when we look at the dunya, and we find all these different phases that we pass through in this dunya, we realize that indeed, this dunya is something that is just transitory. We are here for a short time and we will be leaving. Yet unfortunately, people do not realize the reality of the dunya, the haqiqat of this dunya. The Holy Prophet Muhammad Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa alihi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. He tells us, ad-dunya mazra'atul akhirah. This dunya is the place to farm and to sow the seeds for the akhirah. It is farmland. Dunya is farmland for the akhirah. So you are here in this dunya not for the dunya. You are here in this dunya for the akhirah. That is something that we need to realize. Allah is drawing parables for us so that we think and reflect and open our eyes to understand what this dunya is. And that is why Amirul Mu'mineen Ali ibn Abi Talib salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, Allahumma salli ala Muhammad, he warns us and tells us, La tabi' dunyaka, La tabi' akhirataka bidunyak. Don't sell your akhirah for your dunya. Don't give up your everlasting life for this temporary life. Understand the value of the akhirah. Understand the true meaning of this dunya. Yet still human beings are such that they are always after this dunya. And that is why we find thousands of hadith about dunya. All the time we are being warned about dunya. We are being told about the greedy nature of human beings. We are told that if a human being was given a mountain of gold the size of Uhud, he would still want a second mountain. Human beings are never satisfied with this dunya. There was a man known as Juha. Juha was an old man, skinny and old, and poor. And he would have a special dua that he would recite after every salah. After every salah, we are told that he would raise his hands and say, Oh Allah, I ask you for 100 gold coins. Not one coin less, not one coin more. After every salah, he would recite this dua loudly. Oh Allah, I ask you for 100 gold coins, not one coin less, not one coin more. Now he had a neighbor, a Jew, who always would listen to this dua and he would smile and he would laugh at this man and say, look at this man, what kind of dua is he asking for? You are conversing with Allah Azza wa Jal. Allah, He has everything. Why are you asking only for this 100 gold coins? He decided, I want to play a trick on this man. One day, he put in a pouch 99 gold coins. And Juha, as usual, after his salah, he raised his hand and said, Oh Allah, I pray to you for only one thing, 100 gold coins, not one less, not one more. At that very moment, that Jew took that pouch and because he was the neighbor, he threw it across the wall and it landed right in front of Juha. Juha is looking around, Allahu Akbar. My dua has been answered. He opens the pouch and he starts counting the coins. 1, 2, 3, he gets to 99. He looks in the pouch, something is wrong. He starts again. He counts numerous times. He says, these are 99 coins. Oh Allah, I had asked you for 100, not one less, not one more. But Allah, it's okay, I will give you a discount. I will take 99. Now, the Jew was waiting to see what will happen. I will take 99. There is a knock on the door. Juha opens the door. The Jew comes, he says, this is my money in your hands. Juha says, no, this is not your money. I have been praying to Allah for years. Allah has answered my prayer. Now you want to take the money from me? This is not your money. This money is from Allah to me. So there was a disagreement between the two. And so the Jew said, let us go to the Qadi. Let us go to the judge. Juha told him, I am an old man. I can't walk all the way to the judge. The judge is so far away. I'll need a mount. I'll need a horse to ride. The Jew said, don't worry. I'll give you a horse. He says, it's cold outside. I need an abba, something to cover myself. The Jew said, don't worry. You can use my abba. Let's go to the Qadi right away. He says, okay. He puts on the abba. He sits on the horse. And they take him to the Qadi. They reach the Qadi, and the Jew starts complaining to the Qadi. This man, Juha, this is the story. He used to do dua. I wanted to test him and see what happened. So I put the 99 dirham, the 99 gold coins, and I threw it. The Qadi is looking at him, and then he asks Juha, what do you have to say? Juha told the Qadi, this man is 10 cents short of a pound. This man has lost his marbles. If you ask him right now, he will tell you even this abba I'm wearing is his. So the Qadi asked him, he said, yes, it's mine. And if you ask him, he will say, even this horse I'm riding is his. He said, yes, it is my horse. The Qadi said, no, if that is the case, go away. This belongs to Juha. The human being is always after dunya, always after dunya. This is a reality. We forget. We forget that we are going to leave everything behind. And that is why we are constantly reminded that you will one day leave this dunya. Don't quarrel for petty things in this dunya. Don't break ties with your relatives for petty things of this dunya, things that you will leave behind. In Anwar al-Nu'maniyya, a very beautiful anecdote has come about Isa alayhi salam, which again highlights the same concept of greed in the human being for this dunya. Isa alayhi salam is going with his companion, and they are traversing, and they reach a place where everyone is tired, and Isa alayhi salam is also tired, and he tells his companion that since we have been walking for a long time and we are tired, why don't you go and get some food? And so his companion goes to buy food from the baker's shop. In the meantime, Nabiullah Isa alayhi salam is busy in salah, he's busy in prayer. Now that man comes back, that companion of Isa, that disciple comes back with 3 loaves of bread. Once he's got these 3 hot loaves of bread and he comes back to Isa alayhi salam, he finds Nabi Isa is busy in prayers. And so his stomach is grumbling, he cannot wait any longer. He eats one of the 3 loaves of bread. After Isa alayhi salam finishes his salah, he turns to his disciple and asks him, how many loaves of bread did you bring? He said, I brought only 2 loaves of bread. One is yours, one is mine. Nabiullah said, okay, you are sure it's only 2 loaves? Yes, it's only 2 loaves. They continue their journey. They reach a place. In Anwar al-Nu'maniyya it is written that Nabiullah Isa finds a deer. He slaughters that deer and they both partake of the food, and then he commands the deer with the permission of Allah to come back to life. That deer comes back to life and walks away. That disciple is amazed when he sees this miracle. Once he sees the miracle again, Isa alayhi salam says, now that you have seen this miracle of Allah, I ask you again, Billahi alayk, how many loaves of bread did you bring? He said, only 2. He was not ready to admit that I brought 3 loaves of bread. He said, okay. They continued on their journey. Now they traversed a path that was not commonly traversed by people. And they reached one place where they saw on the ground 3 large nuggets of gold on the ground, lying on the ground. That man said, oh, what fortune, good fortune for us. We found 3 gold nuggets on the ground. So they pick it up. Isa alayhi salam says, I will keep one one is for you, and one is for the person who ate the third loaf of bread. At that moment, his disciple says, yes, yes, I'm the one who ate the third loaf of bread. So Isa alayhi salam says, okay, you can keep all 3 nuggets. They're all yours, no problem. And they part ways. That man is seated there with his 3 large nuggets of gold, contemplating how he will take them, what he will buy. Suddenly, bandits come, 3 bandits come. They see a man seated under the tree with 3 large nuggets of gold. They immediately proceed to kill him, and they say, now we are 3, each of us takes 1 nugget. They continue on their journey. After a little while, they get hungry. They say, okay, we'll send one of us 3 to go and get food, while the other 2 wait here with the gold. That man goes, he buys the food. He decides to poison the food so that he can take all 3 nuggets for himself. In the meantime, those 2 who are seated there decide that when he comes back, they will kill him so that they can take his share. So he comes back with the food. They kill him, and then they eat the food, and they die. And those 3 gold nuggets remain there on the ground. Then in Anwar al-Nu'maniyah, they say Isa alayhi salam passes by that same place, and he finds the dead body of all these people. And he says, هَكَذَا تَفْعَلُ الدُّنْيَا بِأَهْلِهَا. This is what the dunya does to the people who run after the dunya. Still, people don't understand. People always want to go after the dunya. Islam is not against building your dunya. That is why we say, رَبَّنَا آتِنَا فِي الدُّنْيا حَسَنًا وَفِي الْآخِرَةِ حَسَنًا. You build your dunya, but not at the expense of the akhirah. You build your dunya for the akhirah. This is something very important. Unfortunately, we have seen numerous examples, some in our own community as well, of people who, when fortune smiles on them and they become wealthy, it changes them. Now the same people who used to be pious, who used to be good, now they are rich, no more. And for them, the best example is the example of Qarun. The example of Qarun has been mentioned beautifully in Surah Al-Qasas. Qarun used to be a pious man. Qarun used to be a good man. And then he became wealthy. And when he became wealthy, it turned him. Do you know how wealthy Qarun became? Allah Azza wa Jal describes it like this in Surah Al-Qasas. He says, وَآتَيْنَاهُ مِنَ الْكُنُوزِ مَا إِنَّ مَفَاتِحَهُ لَتَنُوءُ بِالْعُصْبَةِ أُولِي الْقُوَّةِ. We gave him so much wealth that just the keys to his treasure, just the keys, would have to be carried by a group of young, strong men. A group. You know how sometimes when you want to lift something heavy, you call the young people to come forward? A whole group would be required just to carry the keys of his treasure. This was Qarun. The people of his community would advise him. They would tell him, Qarun, وَابْتَغِي فِي مَا آتَاكَ اللَّهُ الدَّارَ الْآخِرَةِ. Allah has blessed you so much. Use His blessings to acquire the hereafter, the akhirah. وَأَحْسِنْ كَمَا أَحْسَنَ اللَّهُ إِلَيْكَ. And do good to others the way Allah has done good to you. What did Qarun say? إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. What are you saying? Allah has given me this. This is because of my knowledge. This is because of my expertise. This is because of my business acumen that I was able to become so rich. My good business sense. Allah has not given me any of this. I have worked for it. This was the reply of Qarun. And then we all know the story of how Qarun humiliated Prophet Musa alayhi salam, tried to humiliate Musa alayhi salam. And so Allah says, فَخَسَفْنَا بِهِ وَبِدَارِهِ الْأَرْضِ. We caused the earth to swallow him and all his treasures. Now, before the earth had swallowed his treasures, there were some people in this world, some people who had seen the zina of Qarun, some people who had seen the wealth of Qarun, and they had said to themselves, Ya layta lana mithla ma utiya Qarun. Oh, how we wish we had also got so much wealth like Qarun. The Quran says once he had been swallowed, they changed their story. فَأَصْبَحَ الَّذِينَ تَمَنَّوْا مَكَانَهُ بِالْأَمْسِ. Now, yesterday, those people who used to say, we wish we had as much wealth as Qarun, today, what are they saying? يَقُولُونَ. They've changed their story. Now they say, إِنَّ اللَّهَ يَبْسُطُ الرِّزْقَ لِمَنْ يَشَاءُ مِنْ عِبَادِهِ وَيَقْدِرُ لَوْلَا أَنْ مَنَّ اللَّهُ عَلَيْنَا لَخَسَفَ بِنَا. It's good Allah decides whom to give how much wealth. If we had also got the same wealth, we had also been inside the earth. لَخَسَفَ بِنَا. This is the reality of the dunya. And if you want to know how the dunya is perceived by those who say لَوْ كُشِفَ لِيَ الْغِطَاء مَزْدَدْتُ يَقِينًا, you find what Amirul Mu'mineen says about the dunya and how he describes it in Nahjul Balagha. Nobody in this world has described dunya like this in the way Amirul Mu'mineen has described in Nahjul Balagha. I'll give you only two phrases that he uses in Nahjul Balagha which are unique. Nowhere else, in no other place, nobody before him, nobody after him has described dunya like this. He says, دنياكم عندي أزهد من عفطة عنز. Your dunya to me is lower in value than the snot of a goat. You know what is snot? That which comes out from the nose. You know? The mucus that comes out from the nose. The mucus of a goat. The snot of a goat. Your dunya, he says, Dunyakum indi azhadu min aftati anzin. This dunya to me is less valuable than the snot of a goat. Nobody has described dunya like this. And in another place he says, Wallah la dunyakum fi aynay ahwanu min عراق خنزير في يدي مجذوم. By Allah, this dunya of yours in my eyes has less value than the bone of a pig in the hand of a leper. Allahu Akbar. Look at this description, so vivid. So, the bone of a pig in the hand of a leper, a person who has leprosy, a person from whom people would run away. People never associated with lepers. Why? Because they were afraid that they should not catch leprosy. He says, imagine that bone, even that, of a pig in the hand of a leper. Your dunya is lower in my eyes than this. This is the value of the dunya in the eyes of Amirul Mu'mineen, Ali ibn Abi Talib, salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi. So we realize that the dunya is not something that we should strive to acquire at the expense of the akhirah. The akhirah should be our target. If we gain this dunya, we use it to acquire the akhirah. If you are a wealthy person, then you have to use your wealth to acquire your akhirah. If you are not a wealthy person, then you have to use what Allah has given you. He may have given you strength, physical strength. He may have given you intelligence. He may have given you time. He may have given you all sorts of talents that no one else possesses. Whatever Allah has given you should be used to procure a place for yourself in His proximity in the akhirah. That is why we are here in this dunya. We are here for a very short period of time. Ayatollah Misbah Yazdi describes three groups of people and three different perceptions of this dunya. He says the first group of people are those who are asleep. And they look at this dunya as being the only place. If you talk to them about death or what happens after death, they say, don't talk to us about this. We are not concerned about these things. In hiya illa hayatuna dunya namutu wa nahya. It is only this world. We are born and we die. Don't bother me about these things, about the future, about what will happen after death. I'm not interested in this. Then he says this type of perception of the dunya is nadar haywani. This is an animalistic way of looking at the dunya. And then he uses the Quran. He says, الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا يَتَمَتَّعُونَ وَيَأْكُلُونَ كَمَا تَأْكُلُ الْأَنْعَامِ. Those who disbelieve in the akhirah, they enjoy this dunya, the pleasures of this dunya, and they eat and they drink the way the animals eat and drink. They are not concerned about anything else but this dunya. This is the first group of people. The second group of people are those who know that there is some destination we are going towards. There is a place that we are heading towards. However, they do not think about the akhirah as a place where we will be punished, as a place where we will be questioned. They say, yes, we are born, we may be reincarnated, there is a cycle of life, there is all these things. They don't believe in the akhirah. They don't believe in thawab and iqab. This is the second perception. The third perception are those who know that we have been created in this world and we will die, and we have been created for baqa. خُلِقْتُمْ لِلْبَقَى لَا لِلْفَنَاءِ. You have been created for everlasting life. You have not been created to perish. Allah has not created you for fana. He has created you for baqa. That means He has created you for the akhirah. He has not created you for this dunya. Those people who understand this, these are the people whose eyes are open. These are the people who work for the hereafter. And so these are the three different categories of people when it comes to how people perceive the akhirah. And then we come to the final phase. Sallu ala nabi. After the human being has undergone all these stages in his life, when we come back to the parable of the dunya, then فَأَصْبَحَ هَشِيمًا تَذْرُوهُ الرِّيَاحِ. Then once the vegetation has finished its life cycle, it becomes shaf. It dies and turns into hay. It dies and turns into withered away pieces of vegetation that can be blown away. After the human being has lived in this world temporarily for a few years, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90 years, he dies. And death is a reality, an inescapable reality. And that is the final stage before we go into the akhirah. Death is something that nobody can deny. Death is something that even the atheist will not deny. The atheist will deny God, but he will not deny death. And that is why we are told that when you want to know the reality of dunya, think about death. Go to the Qabristan. Look at all those people who have died and who are buried there. Many of them, we knew them. Many of them, we would talk with them, we would sit with them, we would laugh with them. Where are they today? Try and realize one day we will be with them. One day we will be inside that grave. Even if you live in a palace in this dunya, when you die, the size of your grave is the same as the size of that poor man who didn't even have a house to live in. The grave is of the same size. And so when we try and understand death and the reality of death, then we understand and appreciate this dunya. And death cannot be escaped. There is an interesting anecdote about Prophet Daniel. Prophet Daniel, who is known in the Bible as Daniel. This hadith has also come in our books. It is said that the king who lived at the time of Prophet Daniel, in Arabic his name was Buhtanassar. In the Bible his name is Nebuchadnezzar. This king used to always disturb Prophet Daniel. He would imprison him and then let him go. He would torture him. He would harass him. And one time when he had imprisoned Prophet Daniel, he had a dream. And in that dream, he saw that he was being beheaded. So he immediately wanted to find out the interpretation of his dream. And when he started calling all the people who are learned in his kingdom, nobody could give him a satisfactory interpretation. So immediately he called Daniel from his prison and he told him that I am ready to free you, but I need you to give me the interpretation of my dream. It is a very frightening dream. It is a scary dream. In this dream, I see somebody beheading me. Prophet Daniel alayhi salam tells the king that according to the details you have given me, your death has been decreed by Allah Azza wa Jal at this date, at this time. Allahu Akbar. Imagine if you knew the exact date and time of your death. So he tells the king, your death has been decreed at this date, at this time. The king said, okay, you go back to the prison. If on that date and on that time I am killed, I will leave instructions that they should free you. And if not, then you will be beheaded. That day came, the fateful day. Buhtanassar decided not to take any chances. He decided to tell everyone in the palace to leave the palace. And he stayed alone in the palace with his bodyguard. Only 2 people. He said, Daniel said, I will die today, isn't it? What time? Okay, 10:30? Now I will prove him wrong. I will be alone in the palace with only one person, my bodyguard. Everyone should leave. He told his bodyguard that I want you to be very careful. I don't want anyone to approach the palace. If you see anyone, I have given you permission to behead that person before asking questions. You don't need to ask who are you, why you're coming. Just kill that person. And so the bodyguard is standing watch and Buhtanassar is inside. A few minutes before the time when it was predicted that he is going to be leaving this world, Buhtanassar is walking up and down. He's looking at the time. And he decides to go and ask his bodyguard if he has seen anyone approaching the palace. So he goes behind the bodyguard just to ask him, have you seen anyone coming? The moment the bodyguard hears footsteps behind him, he takes out his sword and swings it, and he beheads the king himself. At the exact moment that Daniel had told him that you will be killed. Nobody can escape death. Death is going to come to each and every one of us. وَلَوْ كُنْتُمْ فِي بُرُوجٍ مُشَيَّدَةٍ. You can lock yourself up in fortresses. When death comes, it will come. And that is why when we look at how the prophets would talk about death, you find, for example, Dawood alayhi salam, when the angel of death comes to Dawood alayhi salam, he asked the angel of death, you have come without any warning? You have not told me anything that you will come to take my soul. Suddenly you have appeared. The angel of death told Dawood, oh Dawood, I have sent you so many warnings. He said, what warnings have you sent me? He said, don't you remember your neighbor? Don't you remember your parents? Don't you remember your friends? All these people who have died before you? Each time somebody you know leaves this world, that is a warning from me to you that your time is also coming. When Nuh alayhi salam was leaving this world, when the angel of death came to him, he asks the angel of death, can you give me permission just to move from the sun into the shade? And with the permission of Allah Azza wa Jal, he is given that time just to move from the sun into the shade. You know how long Nuh alayhi salam lived? The riwayat tell us 2,500 years. 2,500 years. The angel of death is asking him, Ya Nuh, what do you think about death? What do you think about your time in this world? He says, I find it as if my 2,500 years passed in that same moment that I moved from the sun into the shade. And we always postpone our istighfar. We always postpone our good deeds. We always postpone and postpone until the angel of death will come and then regrets. Ya laytani, ya laytani. The Quran has so many ya laytani. Ya laytani ittakhadtu ma'ar rasuli sabila. I wish I had listened to the Prophet. Ya laytani lam attakhidh fulanan khalila. I wish I wouldn't have taken that person as my friend. And so many other regrets people will have at the time of death. So when we come back to this parable of the Quran, to sum up, we find that the parable of this particular parable is talking about the dunya. And it is telling us about the phases that we go through in this dunya. And how we will grow old and we will eventually leave this dunya. Keep that in your mind always, and you will, insha'Allah ta'ala, never stray from the path that Allah Azza wa Jal has ordained. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ayyam Azza, the days when we commemorate and remember the masa'ib of the Ahlul Bayt alayhimus salam. We are told that at the time of our sixth Imam, Imam Ja'far al-Sadiq salawatullahi wa salamu alayhi, at one time Mansur ad-Dawaniqi ordered that the house of Imam al-Sadiq should be burnt while his family was inside. And so the soldiers came and they burnt the house of the Imam. And the women folk of the household of Imam al-Sadiq were running from one room to the other, trying to put out the fire. Eventually, they put out the fire. The next day, one of the companions saw Imam al-Sadiq crying, and he says, "Oh Mawla, why are you weeping? Is it because Mansur ordered that your house should be burnt?" He said, "No, at least my house we were able to put out the fire. Our women did not have to leave the house. I am weeping about my auntie Zainab in Karbala. When the Ashqiya came to put fire in the tents, the women had to run from one tent to another, from one tent to the other. That is why I'm weeping." Hamid ibn Muslim says that on the day of Ashura, as the evening approached, I saw a young girl. Her skirt was burning. So I approached her to try and put out the fire. Immediately she turned away. "Oh man, do not approach me. I am the granddaughter of Rasulullah." Hamid ibn Muslim says, "I told her, I'm just trying to help you put out the fire." She says, "Oh Hamid, oh Bande Khuda, you are looking to me to be a good person, a kind-hearted person. Can you do me one favor?" Hamid says, "Yes, I can do any favor. What do you want?" She says, "Show me the direction of Najaf. What will you do in Najaf?" She says, "I will go and complain to my grandfather Ali ibn Abi Talib." Yes, the night of Sham Ghariba came. Zainab Kubra was doing the work of Abbas. She was taking care of everyone. She told Kulthum, "Let us take care of the children. Let us count the children." They start counting the children. They find Sakina is missing. Where is Sakina? Where is Sakina? And they say, "We should go to the Maqtal looking for Sakina." They go into the Maqtal. They find Sakina near a body resting near the feet of one body. Zainab Kubra comes near her. She wakes her up. "Sakina, Sakina, why are you you resting here? Sakina says that after Shimmer slapped me and I was crying, I was looking for my father. I came into the maktal. I was crying, Baba, Baba, where are you? At that moment from this body came the sound, Ilayya, Ilayya, Bunayya. Zainab asked her, Sakina, why are you resting at the feet of your father? You would always rest on the chest of your father. She said, Aunt Zainab, they have crushed the chest of my ألا لعنة الله على القوم الظالمين وسيعلم الذين ظلموا آل محمد أي منقلب ينقلبون إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون ربنا تقبل منا إنك أنت السميع العليم وتب علينا إنك أنت التواب الرحيم برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين